I count 6 of us. Is that correct, or is there more?
We've got everybody except Chris, and he notified us that he would not be here.
Okay, well, okay, the pictures are coming on now. Alrighty. Let's get started. Good to see you, everybody. Happy August and all this. It is by my count 7:02. Let's call our meeting to order. And Angie, if you would, roll call.
All right, happy to do that. Hello, everybody. Chair Lohman.
Here.
Vice Chair Foster.
Here.
Rich Miller.
Here.
Bob Silverforb.
Here.
Mike Smith.
Here.
Megan Thornton.
Here.
Chris West is absent tonight, and Lori Zwingli. All right, very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. And let's, if you've all had an opportunity to look at the minutes from our last meeting, I looked them over and I saw nothing that was that needed a correction. But maybe I'll ask Bob if he looked them over.
Ralph, you know the answer to that, and you could have had the honors tonight, but I will say that there was a load of stuff from the last meeting. It was a kind of an education in reading the minutes and having a reminder on all the stuff that we discussed. Very extensive discussion, and everything, like you, Ralph, everything looked good to me. And I moved
one correction.
Yeah, Rich.
I'm not listed on roll call.
Is this when you were in North Carolina?
No, July 16th. I was here.
Oh, okay. Angie?
Okay. Well, and what I'm looking at here. Oh, did I omitted your name, didn't I? Oh, I apologize. Yes, I will add you in there. Yep. I see that now. Thank you.
Maybe it was the lack of a full beard, Rich.
Maybe that's it.
That could have been it. Okay. So, other than that correction, is there anything that needs to be changed with our minutes?
I guess not, and if that's the case, I move the minutes be approved as submitted.
All right, and we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, we have, who seconded that?
That was Mike.
Okay, Mike, thank you. And all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, the minutes are passed. Angie, if you would be so kind, if you would have those prepared in the next couple of days, and I will swing by at your email and sign them.
That would be great. Thank you. Yeah, I'll let you know as soon as we get them ready for you.
Okay. We have now, we're on to board member announcements. And I just wanted to give everybody a heads up. If you look at our agenda tonight, we have an extreme amount of things that we need to cover. So if we could keep our announcements to the minimum, that would be appreciated. So let's start off. Let's go backwards. Let's go with Laurie. Let's start with Laurie. Laurie, we can't hear you.
You're muted, Lori.
Okay. I got flustered. I'm very sorry. So I moved away from the screen. So I am aware, as I'm sure you all are, we've seen a lot of the comments that are going to be read into the record at some point. And the only thing that I wanted to say tonight was just to point out and clarify for the record that the Sherwood Police Foundation's stuff looks like this. It says, "I love the Sherwood PD." And this. These are the things that we have handed out to our citizens in support of our local PD. That's the extent of what we do. I know there's going to be a statement read in later, but I just wanted to emphasize, this is us. So when you see this, this is us. There you go.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Chris? Oh, he's not here. Okay. Megan?
Am I still on mute?
Nope, we can hear you.
We're
Okay.
good.
So I
And
emailed
we
a
can
state.
see you too.
What?
And we can see you too.
Okay. I emailed a statement to the police to the chief Monday morning, but now that it's Thursday and so much has happened, I am not going to read that statement. I modified it, and that's what I'll read. It should hopefully go short. It's not like I wrote a book.
Okay.
Angie, do not try to type all this. I'll just email it to you either tonight or in the morning, so you can just pop it into the minutes, because
Okay.
that
Sounds
seems
good.
more fair to you.
Okay.
If we were in person, I would have just given it to you. So, okay, first, Lori, thank you for showing the sign for the minutes. I will be getting mine tomorrow from Renee because I think they're fantastic. I don't do bumper stickers, but I will do the sign. Okay, so we know the optics of the Back the Blue rally by Walgreens looked bad, and the fact that the police foundation was originally supposed to be at the rally, I think only made it worse. Oh, pause. This is me talking, nobody else. Okay, but that's only part of the story and part of the optics. Understand this event doesn't just occur on the street, it's amplified online. If you look at our local Sherwood forum posts about the event, there's a dark, vile, racist part of our city I had no idea existed. A part of the city that welcomes hate groups like Proud Boys and make people of color feel unwelcome. I find it sickening, and I want to work together to fix it. We can't fix racism at this meeting or today or this month, and we can't ignore it. So I want to, like the chief always says, you see something, you say something. I see something wrong, and I want to take action. So specific to the rally this weekend, I have 2 recommendations and 1 request. So the 2 recommendations are for the foundation, and the request is for the SPD. Recommendation 1 is that the foundation suspend involvement in rallies in the short-term indefinite future, because it will inevitably draw the attention of political groups and radical hate groups. That is not to say don't have events. You're not going to put on a boots and bling. That's way too much. But smaller events like a sign pickup at Starbucks, something like that. I don't know. I believe it was in poor judgment for the foundation to agree to a rally called Back the Blue, since that name, Back the Blue, is right now a political counter-protest group to Black Lives Matter, which advocates for much more than just support for the police. I feel like the term has gotten co-opted, unfortunately. They're political, and more importantly, these rallies bring down the fringe groups. And in our town, that's Proud Boys. I realized that was not the intention of the foundation, and I believe in the goodness of everyone, that the intention was purely, let's support our police during these tenuous times. My request, I don't have an answer for, just the conviction that the hate groups have gained presence in Sherwood physically, but also online. I mean, Proud Boys, they got so much thankfulness and gratitude for this weekend. We have people afraid to walk in Sherwood, and that's not okay. And the fact that they're using their Second Amendment right to support their First Amendment right, I don't think is okay. It may be legal, but I find it menacing and intimidating if you look at what happened at Symposium. But their free speech spews racism and hate and fear, and the people in Sherwood are fearful. I'm very scared to even be saying this on a public forum. You have to know, I haven't slept all week. But people of color and people of, other sexual orientations are even more fearful than me. And should these hate groups continue to display, then we're asking our citizens to counter protest. And I don't think that's a good idea. That's just going to be escalation. I want us to be a welcoming place, but we need to deal with our racism and hate. And that's why I solicited comments for tonight's meeting, because we advise the police on what to do. I think it's, and I didn't want to say this on the, I'm a part of the police advisory board and I'm advising you to do this. I advise the police. I, kept it as my personal opinion. To you, I'm saying, because our role is to advise the police, I am advising the department to denounce Proud Boys, because they're the ones in our town, not because I'm pulling them out of the air. If Antifa were here, I'd say we need to denounce them too. We cannot have these factions in our town. Now I'm going on mute. Thank you for accepting my more than 1 minute board announcement.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. And you will send that to Angie?
My written was more eloquent than my spoken. I will send the written to her because it covers all those points, but it is much better.
Okay. Thank you. Mike, you're up.
All righty, I've got two quick things. One, I'm glad Lori mentioned the I Heart Sherwood police signs, because on my walks around the neighborhood every morning, I've seen a bunch of them. Love them. I have to say, I don't know where to get mine. So later on, if someone would let me know where to get mine, I would love that. The other thing, and I'm really excited about this, I may have mentioned back when I first joined this group that I had had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. as a guest with a friend of mine to attend some events with the FBI Citizens Academy that's produced here in Portland. And I have just been accepted to go through the academy, which is a 6-week program beginning in September. So I'm really excited about that. I'll let you guys know how that transpires.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice. Is that it, Mike?
That's it. All done.
Congrats. Big congrats. And I think if you'll see Laurie or contact Laurie, she can make sure you can grab some of those signs and maybe even a bumper sticker or two.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Bob?
Okay, Ralph, I'll make it short. I have two things that I just wanted to say. The op-ed, and I believe the chief sent out an email regarding this, the op-ed by Chief Lovell that appeared in the New York Times was terrific, and I hope that everybody read it. If you haven't, you ought to go back and read it. It was, I thought, excellent. And the second thing I wanted to say is that I've been watching, well, every night I watch, in addition to the national news, a piece on KGW called The Story. And they've been having a lot of things about the protests. And they had an interview this week with a Sergeant Maxey of the PPD. And he's the first person that has been allowed to talk to the news from the police. It was an excellent interview. It's on the KGW YouTube. And if any of you want to hear this from another perspective, from the police perspective on what they put up with every night, I'd recommend that you get on there and take a look at it. That's it, Ralph.
All righty. Thank you, Bob. Rich, anything for us tonight? Rich, can't hear you.
I wanted to go on record tonight to say I very much appreciated the letters that were sent in from the people that support our police, and I especially was moved by Mr. Gooding's letter, and I loved his explanation about the history of the thin blue line. I didn't know that, so it was very helpful to me. And so such a reasoned, of course he's very passionate about it because of his son, but such a reasoned editorial. I mean, I wish more people could read things like that because it would put things in perspective for people. right now we're in a society that just reacts. And I think we need to do a little bit more reflection. And that was a wonderful letter to help do that. So
Is that something we could put out, like the Sherwood PD could post on Facebook, Chief? Because it was fantastic. I agree with Rich.
Well, it'll be read tonight with the other comments that were submitted, so it'll be out in that sense, yeah.
I think that letter ought to go in the Sherwood Gazette. I think it was good enough. I agree with Rich. I think it'd be good if everybody had a chance to read that.
Well, ironically, I think Mr. Gooding has been speaking with our local Gazette editor because he had expressed an interest in that topic, and so they are already connected. So you may very well see an article about that.
Is that it, Rich?
that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hi, Diane.
Hi. Just quick from me, but maybe the chief is going to touch on it later. But I just wanted to say congrats to the 2 officers who graduated from the police academy. That I'm sure they're thrilled to get that done, even though it was done in a couple of segments. I'm sure that's, they're excited to be complete with that sort of new, training in under odd circumstances right now, because I'm sure it wasn't quite what it normally is as far as the way that they had to do it. So congrats to those 2 who completed, and yeah.
And welcome. And welcome.
I will just, since I don't have that written down, I'll just go ahead and update everybody now. There was very little fanfare about that because there was no official graduation ceremony, unfortunately. So they along with their classmates and other current academy classes are really missing out on a big part of that success story. So that's unfortunate, but it's just a result of the precarious times we're in with COVID-19. I will tell you that one of the officers, Dean Borges, was selected as the top student for physical fitness and health and fitness, and he received an award for that. So we're certainly proud of that, but we're obviously proud of both of them, and they're now in field training. But it has been as you indicated, a very, very unusual, outside of the box training experience, which is unfortunate, but they're doing good, and I will pass that on.
Yep, we're happy for them. We're happy for the force. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I guess it's my turn. Well, I just have a couple of reflections. I think from our group that I actually was the only one that was in attendance on Saturday at the rally. And I like being an observer. I like watching to see what's going on. As with any rally, there's no way that anybody that puts that on can control who might or might not come into that setting. So that's point number one. As far as the foundation and the city or the PD pulling out, excuse me, the only comments I heard about that was, they were sorry to see that happen. And we understand why it happened, but the members that I was, or the people that I was around, they were just sorry to see that happen. They were disappointed. And other than that, a couple of things happened with a couple of young ladies and some of the Proud Boys. And while they're a scary bunch to me personally, and I told the chief, I said, I'm 73 years old, and there's a lot of things that are scary at my age. So it's not just that group, but you can't say no. I don't know how you can be a gatekeeper on that, but my experience was peaceful and was extremely supportive of the Sherwood Police Department. We got a lot of waves. We got a few one-finger waves, and that was about it. And I was not able to stay for the entire event, but while I was there, a good hour, Yeah, it was a very peaceful experience for me. So I'm just passing that on for what it's worth. Okay. Uh, if we are done with our comments, again, did I hear somebody? Okay. If we're done with our comments, again, we have a rather lengthy agenda, and I don't want to set things aside. But if we have accomplished what we need to accomplish right now, I would like to move on. Any objections? Okay, hearing none. Then business. We have a board recruitment update. Chief, can you give us that?
Sure. So as you know, with Vance Stemler's resignation, we have a vacancy on the board. There's several vacancies on city boards and commissions, and I'm really pleased that the police advisory board just got buried in applications. So the other openings were extended to try to get more applications. Ours was not, because we had 11 applications for one position. So your chair and your council liaison and I had interviews as per normal and interviewed all 11 people. And there has been a unanimous recommendation made to the mayor, who has approved that recommendation, and it's now moving forward to city council for final approval. That'll take place on September 1st. So a week from this coming Tuesday, if you want to watch the city council meeting, that will be your first opportunity to find out who that person is. But it's a great candidate. I would certainly defer to any comments that Councilor Young or Chair Lohman want to make. But so we should have a new face on for the September meeting.
We had 11 great candidates, hands down. Any one of them could be their name could have been put forward.
Why can't we know now?
Because it's not official. I'm sorry.
Well, we look forward to hazing the newbie.
Jeez.
It means you're not the newbie anymore, Mike.
I know.
Okay. Item B under business, we have a review of municipal. It's my turn. Municipal Code 2.36 personnel systems regarding policing expectations.
Okay. So to begin with, I want to call your memory back to the special work session we had with City Council, where we discussed policing in Sherwood. Councilor Young, that was in June, right? I think. Yeah. So a lot of work went into that and has come out of that and continues from that. And not the least of which was a desire by the mayor and I and the rest of city council, but the mayor and I collaborated quite a bit on this, to kind of memorialize some of the things that are important to us about what we're doing right now and what we believe should be done forever with the Sherwood Police Department. And so what you have before you is a draft version of what the new Chapter 236 personnel system in the municipal code is going to look like. City Council wants you all to review this first, and then if you have any questions or any changes, we can explain how things came to be, and then they're looking for your recommendation to pass this and put it into place. So that's kind of how it came about. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of run through it, and I will, where I can, I will try to let you know what it used to say, but suffice it to say that most of this is brand new. It's added. There wasn't a whole lot of changes to the existing language. It was more about adding quite a bit more content. So the title section, I'm not going to worry about that. A purpose, that has not changed. It's really this chapter is about establishing equitable uniform procedures for personnel matters, so on and so forth. Adoption and amendment of rules. Here's where we first started seeing some added language. So the city council authorizes in section A there all the compensation of appointed officers, and by resolution they approve the rules regarding recruitment, selection, all that stuff there. That is all captured in a City of Sherwood employee manual, which applies to all non-represented employees that are not otherwise governed by a collective bargaining agreement or a union contract. The city manager is responsible for taking care of that employee manual, and you can most of that, the rest of that paragraph there just deals with that piece. So that is city government in section A. Then section B is specific to the police department. What this section B used to say was that actually, I'm not sure that section B was there before. I think all of section B is new. So the police department shall operate under a police policy manual. All police policies and amendments thereto will be subject to the following review and approval process. As specified in section 208085 of this code, which talks about boards and commissions and the police advisory board, the PAB will review the policy or policy amendment and make a recommendation to city council. So we're already doing that, right? We started that last month. As policy updates come through, they'll come to you first, and then they'll, with your review and recommendation, they'll go to city council. City council will then review the policy or policy amendment along with the recommendation and approved by resolution. So that's new language there. That process was not taking place before, and so that's all brand new. And then next section, administration of the rules. So section A is pretty much exactly what it was before. Section B used to say that the police chief would administer the rules governing the police department. So we just cleaned that up to say the police policy manual, because those are the rules. And then section C was added to just define what administering means, and you see that there. Okay, here's the meat and the potatoes. Section 236050, administration of the police department. This is all brand new. None of this existed previously. And this is the bulk of what, as I mentioned earlier, the mayor and I collaborated on, other counselors, bits and pieces. But this is the part that is captured. This is the legacy that we want to capture and try to memorialize where we think, when there's a new chief, a new mayor, a new council, whatever the case may be, this is what the police department should be looking like, no matter who's in charge in any position. So instead of just reading through all those, you all had those ahead of time. Is there anything you want me to read or clarify, or does anybody have any questions?
Megan.
This is just me being new to, the public board world and understanding how this works. So, Chief, this, correct me if I'm wrong, means like you were in, say, Tualatin, was that correct?
Before coming to Sherwood, yes.
Okay, so you were in Tualatin and said, I want to work in Sherwood. I see a position open. You applied to like the city manager, who then went through a whole process with the council, and then it was an appointment process, or was it like you were, or any police chief, city manager says, we're looking for a new chief, we want this one from Tualatin poached and appointed? Like,
No, it doesn't generally.
Understand that process.
Yeah, so it doesn't generally work that way. Normally the position will be posted, a recruitment will be initiated, applications will be accepted, and here's where it starts to look different in different locations. Some Some cities will use a recruiting firm to do the work for them. Some cities will do it in-house. And there may be different steps. They may have differing levels of interviews and assessment centers, or they just may have interviews. I mean, there's some variation there, but once the applications are received, they're going to be scored and looked at for qualifications, and a group of finalists are going to be selected, and those folks are going to be interviewed. There may be a second group of finalists that come out of that group, and that at some point, then the city makes a determination who they want to select as their next chief. And that selection in most cities, now, the majority of Oregon cities are run under what's called a council manager form of government, which means there's an elected body that sets policy, but they appoint a city manager or city administrator who makes all the personnel decisions and day-to-day operational decisions. So the city council in Sherwood, the city council only hires 2 people. The city manager, they hire and fire by majority vote, and the city attorney. Every other position is hired and appointed by the city manager or, through a department director.
And the judge.
What?
And the judge.
Oh, thank you, Counselor, and the municipal court judge, yes. So the city manager is the one who will make the selection of the chief. Now, depending on the process, the council may have had a chance to meet them in some kind of a public setting or whatever, but ultimately in Sherwood, it would be the city manager's decision to select the next police chief. And then there's a background investigation and a series of other things that are done, of course. And then it's done. And there'll be an opportunity where like for me, I was told, here's your first city council meeting. We'll introduce you to council and to the community and be there. So that's pretty common, but the decision is made by the city manager. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions about section A? We'll start with that one. Okay, how about section B? Okay, well, that's easy. I
would
go ahead.
Mostly because I had to Google the definition. I mean, I had to look up rightful policing, and maybe that's just because I'm, outside of policing. So I wasn't sure if that's in there, then is it pretty standard that goes with a specific definition with it? I guess, do you know what I'm saying? Since it's not defined in this itself, is that clear by just having the rightful policing term in the verbiage without a definition with what that is exactly?
So the reason that term's in there is because in the first draft of putting this together, I used that term because I knew what it meant. And then as we cleaned up, you'll see that the words were added, which includes the concepts of lawfulness, legitimacy, and procedural justice. So that is what rightful policing is. Probably what should have happened is that we should have taken the term rightful policing out and simply said the police department shall adhere to a philosophy of policing that includes the concepts of lawfulness, legitimacy, and procedural justice. Now, I don't think it hurts the document to have rightful policing, but your point is spot on, Diane. Somebody's going to read that and say, what does that mean? So if you guys feel like this document is better without that, that can certainly be a suggested edit. But that's how that ended up there.
Okay.
Can everyone make sure they're muted? I'm hearing either a conversation between family members or a TV in the background, and I have a hard time concentrating. Please.
I think actually I have to be unmuted, and I think that might have been in my home, so apologize. Okay.
I would concur with that change, by the way, to just put it in the way that you read it back to us. I would concur would be a good change.
Should we put that in the form of a motion?
So here's what I would ask, Mr. Chair, is that, I'm gonna need the board to approve this, and you can certainly, that would certainly, I think, would warrant and be justified by a motion and formal approval. And then it would include a recommendation from you to, from the chair, from the police advisory board to city council, which normally you would come to a meeting. I don't think we need to do that at this point. And in your recommendation, you can simply say that we recommend in 236050 sub B number 4 that we just, make the edit that the chief has in the new version or something to that effect.
Okay. Let's continue.
Okay, in case, well, I'm waiting for maybe one more question or comment. So just as you're gonna see as we go through policy here in a minute, the subsection A, most of that stuff has to do with the requirements of being certified and qualified and to hold the chief executive office, right? So that's all very administrative, very legal type of stuff. But you see in subsection B, that's all discretionary stuff. So the top part isn't so much discretionary, although you're going to see that the standards that we've set in A are a little bit more stringent than what is required by law and what is currently in policy. So we'll tweak our policy, but the subsection B material is all discretionary. Police departments don't have to do most any of those 5 items. Some of them have legal requirements, like, hiring, there's certain laws regarding hiring and so on and so forth, but most of that stuff is discretionary, and that's what makes it most important because, as I said, we believe that to be your very best, those are the things you have to do because that's what you rely on. You should never rely on yourself to say, no, it's all right, we're fine. You should rely on as you do in other industries, as Bob could tell us stories, and I'm sure others of you as well. You rely on outside means and bodies and, whether it's your insurance carrier, an accreditation body, accreditation for example, education. You send your 18-year-old child off to college to get a degree that they can do something with. You're hoping that they're going to get a degree from an accredited university, right? It's something that's going to be recognized. So that's the discretionary stuff. So I wanted to make that distinction before we move on. So any other questions or comments? Okay.
I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of this document, the personnel system, to include a change at 2.36.50050 B4. Don't all speak at the same time.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion, and you said all the right words there, that we approve chapter 2.36 personnel system with the modification down here in, I guess it's B2?
B4.
B4.
So basically you're taking out the word rightful and leaving the word policing in there, lowercase policing, take out the question mark, or not the quote marks. It's a very simple change.
Yes, that's it.
The police department shall adhere to the philosophy of policing, comma, which includes the concepts of lawfulness, legitimacy, and procedural justice.
And I will have my editor look at whether the should be A. So I'm not sure if it should be to a philosophy or the philosophy, but we'll clean that up. But certainly the big improvement is or the big edit is what you just said. So yes, we'll take out the word rightful and the quotations and lowercase p on policing.
Does that suffice your motion, Bob?
That's perfect, Ralph. Absolutely.
Rich, is yours a second then?
Second.
Laurie seconded. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional conversation?
My only thought is that Chief said he liked having rightful in with the description of what it is because it's precise and understood. Is that correct, Chief?
No, I'm sorry. I put it there because I knew what it meant. But to the layperson reading this document, it isn't precise. They wouldn't know what it meant. And so it should have been edited out. It didn't get caught.
Okay, then I'm good.
Any other comment? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, sign. All right. Thank you, Chief. Police policy reviews, chapters 1 and 2.
So by way of reminder, thank you, Mr. Chair, the policy manual is posted online. So my hope and intent is that everybody will know on agenda what chapters or what sections we're looking at, and you can then refer to them ahead of time, read ahead if you'd like, and certainly can, if you wanted to, you could print them out or look at them during the meeting. When I was considering which policies to do next, I thought, you know, we kind of covered the two really immediately important ones. And it just made sense to me that from this point on, we ought to just start at 1 and move our way back towards 10. And there's a lot of ground to cover between 1 and 10, I can tell you that. But 1 and 2 are very administrative, procedural. There's not a whole lot of question or stuff to these. So I think we shouldn't have any problem getting through chapter 1 and 2 tonight. So what I'm going to do is again, in no way, shape, or form do I want, or do you want me to go through each section and paragraph of this, because we'll be here all night. So I'm just going to call out the section numbers and titles and see if there's any questions. I'll point out a few highlights, and we'll just make our way through in that manner.
I have no objection to that. Anybody else? Proceed, Chief.
Okay, so starting with policy 1, purpose and 100.1, purpose and scope, and then policy. The key here is that this lays out statutorily and by department rule the authority that officers have. And in particular in 100.3, that's all for the most part statutory language. So that's where the authority of police officers comes from, is from state statute. And then as far as the city goes, it comes through municipal code, which we just went over some of that, and city charter and local authority. 100.4 constitutional requirements. Pretty clear, simple statement that everybody's rights under the Constitution shall be upheld. And then there's a statement about interstate peace officer powers. So there certainly could be an incident where, you know, everybody probably thinks of you're chasing a car and they cross a state line. And this is what kind of covers that and talks about what powers you have according to statute. Any questions in that? Okay, public safety certification. So this is the what lays out, you know, what certification people need to have, basic certification, what supervisors and managers need to have, so on and so forth. Obviously short and sweet. And it's very statutory language. It covers the requirements that the state of Oregon puts on And you'll notice that it says at least 24 hours of training. We generally exceed that for leadership training, and then basic training is the same as 84 hours every 2 years. We generally exceed that as well. Questions? All right, hearing none.
Wait a minute, Chief.
Okay.
I have a question. What's included in the leadership / professional training that's not in the supervising or supervision middle management course? We're talking about 102.3 for supervisors and managers, and 102.4, the maintenance of the certification, and that's where it lists this leadership professional training.
Right. So in order to receive your supervisory or management certificate through DPSST, you have to complete an approved supervisory or middle management training course within 12 months of appointment. So that's 102.3. That's what that is saying. So you've got a year after you get promoted to sergeant to attend some kind of a supervisory course. You'll notice that it's all in lowercase, so they're not designating which course that it needs to be, but it needs to be an approved supervision course or management course. And then in 102.4, that's talking about what they call maintenance training. So in order to keep your certification, you must have ongoing training. And that's what needs to be 24 hours every 3 years just for leadership training. So that's in addition to what you need to accomplish to keep your police officer training.
Just continuing ed, correct?
It's continuing education, yes, continuing training. Yep. So they're two separate things. So both as a police officer, but even more so as a supervisor, and in Sherwood, so a sergeant, captain, or chief, you have to meet the minimum requirements, and then you also have to meet these additional requirements.
That's satisfying, Bob?
I'm sorry?
Does that satisfy your question?
It does. Thanks, Ralph.
Okay, the next page, oath of office, again, pretty basic. Just spells out the oath of office that every member takes. We also must swear to or abide by, adhere to the Criminal Justice Code of Ethics and sign that. And so that's basically what that's talking about. Okay, 106 policy manual. This talks about our policy manual system. And as I've said before, it's important to understand that it's a system. It's not just a written document that sits on a shelf. It's living. It lives online. It can be changed. It can be modified. It can be updated for multiple reasons, not the least of which are for statutory changes. And this chapter talks about whose authority it is to make sure that it's taken care of, what the manual does and what it doesn't. There's obviously a legal disclaimer in there. So yeah, like I said, I'll just kind of defer to any questions. A lot of definitions for terms that may be found later on in the policy manual. Multiple times, right? So what they're defining there are terms that don't show up every once in a while, but that show up frequently. So for example, on duty, that probably shows up 100 or more times throughout the entire manual. So they're defining it very broadly and generically one time here, so you know moving forward what it means. Any questions about that? So obviously it states there that the police chief is the ultimate authority for the content and adoption of the provisions of this manual shall ensure compliance with all applicable federal, state, and local laws. We may need to modify that a little bit to capture what we just did on municipal code. I'm going to have to read this in more detail and see what we need to do on there, if anything.
Just a comment, Chief.
Yes.
And this is just me being nitpicky, I'm sorry, but under officer/sworn, it says those employees, regardless of rank, who are sworn peace officers, employees. Should that be just an officer? No S?
Probably, yeah. So that's actually gives me an opportunity to talk about, oftentimes when Lexipol will issue policy updates, those updates will contain numerous grammatical types of things like that. And they really kind of are an update that really doesn't need, you know what I mean? It's not something that I need to pay attention to or whatever. They caught a grammatical error that you caught that I hadn't caught and hadn't changed. I have the ability to go in and change those as well. But that's an example of one of the times or one of the corrections they may make through their update process. But yeah, that's clearly something that grammatically needs to be fixed. There probably needs to be an and or in there, I'm just guessing. Those employees, regardless of rank, who are sworn peace officers and or employees, I'm not, no, that's not, yeah, I don't know. Employees probably doesn't need to be there. So anyway, yeah, good catch. There's going to be other things like that as you read these chapters. You're going to find that they just haven't found yet.
So do you want me to point the ones out that I've seen or no?
You are more than welcome to, but just understand that I may not get very excited about it.
That's fine.
We have to let Laurie have a good time, so.
That's right. Probably can't help herself.
I can't.
Okay, any other questions on 106?
No, sir.
Okay, 107 talks specifically about me. Very short and sweet. We will need to modify 107.3 because it says right now 2 years. And you all just are going to be recommending to City Council that document that says 1 year. So again, that's a more stringent requirement. And frankly, in my opinion, there's no reason why you can't have your executive certificate within a year of being appointed police chief. And most folks are going to have it already. I certainly did. I already had my executive certificate as a captain at Walton. So any questions on that?
Laurie? No?
Okay, chapter 2. Organization and administration. So this really talks about how the department is laid out. This is based on a survey that we took when we got into Lexipol. We told them a lot of this information and they plug it in specific and unique to customize to our department. And so that's where you see, well, it spells out the authority of the police chief, which I referred to earlier. Hold on just a second, excuse me.
Lori, I know you're gonna catch the typos on this one. I got it
Yeah.
right here.
I was afraid Megan was gonna hear my dog whining there, so I had to open the gate for him.
I'm so glad, hold on, Chief, I have to comment. I'm so glad you ladies are doing it so I don't have to as the English major. It's really nice to be like off the hook on that. Thank you.
I am not claiming to catch them all, so if I miss some, please chime in.
So as you can see in 201.1, authority of the police chief will have to change the couple references in there, but that's where it lays out by city charter and municipal code, which we just worked at. The authority of the police chief to run the police department, basically. Then it talks about the different divisions.
Well, hold on.
Oh,
there's a couple things in there.
So in that first one.
The first line, the city of Sherwood is. There needs to be a space between Sherwood and is.
yeah. So can I take back my answer?
Yes. I can just
Yeah,
email
yeah.
it.
And
whatever you like.
here's what I would request, as you catch those, just jot them down and shoot me an email.
Got it.
Not to everybody, just to me, remember.
Got
Otherwise, it's gonna be 10 o'clock before we get through this chapter, because there's probably gonna be a ton.
I will send you an email.
All right. As you may or may not know, we have 3 divisions, and so that spells out how they work there. We have language on command protocol. How do you operate within the police department in terms of communication? We're not very strict on that, but it's critical that it be laid out so that everybody knows what the expectations are. Unity at command is an important paramilitary, quasi-military function that needs to happen. Talks about complying with orders, and if you get an order that you do not feel is legal or right, tells you how you handle that and how you address that. And then just a quick statement about accountability. Questions? All right, 204, Departmental Directives. We don't use directives very much anymore, but a directive would be used to announce a change in policy or procedure. And so there is a system there for that, but we just don't use it much because our policy manual allows us to do all that automatically. But I could issue a directive changing something for a period of time if I wanted to. We generally address, for example, I could say, because of an unanticipated extreme heat wave coming next week, I'm relaxing the following uniform standard to, whatever. You can wear shorts or whatever the case may be. So that would be an example of a directive. We most generally just handle that via email. So, but that's what that policy talks about. Emergency operations plan. So that's obviously directly refers to or relates to the city's emergency operation plan. And this is our kind of what it means for us, duty specific. If something significant happens, how are we going to notify everybody? What's the expectation of everybody?
So, Chief?
Yes.
Is the emergency operations plan the same thing as the emergency management plan, or are they 2 different things?
They are 2 different things. So this is specific to this manual. And then the city has the emergency operation or the emergency management plan, which is something different. So this is just an operational guideline for the police department for an incident that may not involve the rest of the city.
Okay, so I find that a little confusing because up on 206.1, it says the city has prepared an emergency operations plan manual. And then down below in 206.2, it talks about the emergency operations plan. And then in 206.2.1, it talks about in the event that the emergency management plan is activated. And if you guys all know what that means, that's great.
I think that's a typo, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll have to look into that one because I think that's a terminology mistake.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on that? If not, we'll move into training, which is a good chapter.
Okay.
So again, there's a lot of good content in there, and my hope and assumption is that you all have looked through there. Are there any questions? So it lays out what we want to accomplish through our training, how we address training, so on and so forth.
Chief, on training, when we had that Chamber of Commerce meeting in person with Tommy, thank you. I didn't see it, albeit I'm reading it on my phone. It is small But have you addressed the change in philosophy from the more traditional, police with batons and guns and grabbing certain ways to the more martial art techniques and body language philosophy that you're now using?
Yeah, that's actually going to be kind of conveyed in a couple different spots, like the use of force policy that we covered last month.
Yeah.
This is really kind of a 30,000-foot level. It's not going to talk about specific training topics as much as it is going to talk about how do we establish what those topics are and what's important and so on and so forth. Any other questions? So I do want to point out 208.9 daily training bulletins. So Lexipol offers a daily training bulletin, and this basically says we may choose to utilize those. We currently are not utilizing them. What they do is they provide a very brief, like 3 or 4 minute training every day, and it covers a particular policy subject, and it has a quick test, and then gives you a reminder of what the policy says. Whether you got the test right or the question right or wrong, it's going to say, oh, good, and yeah, you answered that right because remember the policy says this, or it's going to say, are you sure? Because remember the policy says this, kind of a deal. We stopped that several years ago for a couple reasons. One, because it was going to save us some money and we were looking to cut some costs. More importantly, we didn't feel like we were getting the type of training that we wanted. We wanted it to be more specific about what do you do in this kind of a situation. And it was really just kind of grilling people about what the policy manual said, and we just didn't feel like that was the best bang for the buck. So we certainly there's been some discussion about whether we should go back to that or not, but anyway, just want to point out that we're currently not using that. It's a discretionary thing, and as I said, I am less concerned about people, not that I'm not concerned, but I'm less concerned about people knowing what the wording in the policy says as I am about them applying it appropriately in any given scenario and having an understanding of what they can and can't do and what the right thing to do is or isn't. Okay, next chapter is about email. Really exciting stuff there. Basically says you've got to use it for work purposes and you can't misuse it and you have no expectation of privacy. And all of that email management is thankfully taken care of by our wonderful IT staff. Administrative communications, how do we talk to one another? Well, hopefully we're talking to one another face to face, which we are, but there's also memorandums, there's different types of correspondence. We may do surveys, and then it talks about confidentiality. So again, pretty simple, but just the types of things that need to be covered in a thorough policy manual. Okay, staffing levels. So it talks about, this is important because it talks about minimum staffing levels, and this really kind of plays into our staffing plan and how we're able to accomplish this. So 216.2 says that we need to have at least 2 sworn officers on duty at all times. Now, a sergeant is considered a sworn officer, so is the police chief, right? That means that you're a certified, sworn, wearing a badge, carrying a gun cop. And there's got to be at least 2 of those on duty at all times. Now, when we went through the staffing exercise and gaining public input, some of you heard from people that they were shocked that it was only 2, that they thought it should be more. Well, that number is based on a couple different criteria. One, what's the demand from the community? is the demand at any given time able to be met by 2 officers? Number 2, or equally, actually probably number 1, are we able to maintain safety? So that's most important. Are we able to keep the community safe? Or are we able to keep the officers safe by only having 2? And then demand would come in after that. So that talks about how we do that, and that at some point is going to change. I guarantee you, as the community continues to grow, 2 is not going to be enough. The key part about the staffing plan, as you recall, is in order to have 2, we have to have 3, right? So in order to have 2 bodies on, because of time availability formulas and all of that, at 3, it takes 3 to have 2. So that's where we got to that point in the staffing plan. So this is where it says we've got to have 2 on. So that doesn't mean that somebody can't make an arrest and drive somebody to jail, leaving only 1 person in town. That can still happen, and it's potentially problematic. But it says there has to be 2 on duty at all times. So again, that'll probably be something that gets modified as the community continues to grow. It talks about supervision deployments. There's references, obviously, to the collective bargaining agreement. That all plays into this. Officer in charge. If there's not a sergeant on duty, somebody has to be in charge. So we use an officer in charge, and it talks about what the criteria is and how that works. Again, part of the staffing plan was that we added a 4th sergeant, which has made a huge impact in having a sergeant on more times. But it's still pretty much impossible to guarantee that a sergeant's going to be on 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, because we would probably need 6 of them to do that. And that's just way, way expensive. So we utilize officers in charge, and they're most of the time, they don't have to be, most of the time, they're the person working that has the most seniority. So it's generally folks who've been around and have a lot of experience.
Chief, who are the 4 sergeants?
Who are they? In order of experience, Sergeant John Shields, Sergeant Nathan Powell, Sergeant Randy Johnson, Sergeant Chris Azela. Okay, concealed handgun license. So they've determined that this needs to be in there, even though we don't manage this program, but it still has references to contacting people with a license, I think, and what to do if it says it needs to be revoked and so on and so forth. But most of this doesn't apply to us because we don't manage the program, but they said it should be in there, so it doesn't hurt having it in there.
So please, Chief, I have a question, just for my own edification. It's probably got nothing to do with this section. But if a person has a concealed handgun license issued by the county, and they get stopped for whatever reason, as one of your officers calls that license number in or whatever, does it automatically come up? No information on the vehicle comes up, and potential owner or driver,
not the license plate.
okay.
So if I pull in behind you and I run your license plate off of your vehicle, it's not going to tell me that.
Oh.
It's not until I run your driver's license number. And then it's
Okay.
going to tell me that you have a concealed handgun license. Hopefully you will have already told me that, because that's most folks that I have talked to that have taken the course have said that's one of the first things they tell you is always disclose that to a police officer. But it's not required. But anyway, that's when we would find out, is when we do a driver's license check.
Okay.
So I have a question. What's the benefit to having one of these LEOSA concealed permits as opposed to a regular concealed permit?
Give me the section you're looking at here, so I'm not reading the whole page.
220. Well, I'm looking at 220.3.1. Are we not there yet?
No, we're not there.
Sorry.
Okay, we're there now. So what this is referring to is when somebody has retired as a police officer, they have the ability to carry a concealed firearm. That's neither here nor there to the Sherwood Police Department, except we may choose to provide training for some of these folks. We don't have to, but we may choose to. And if we do, then this lays out the guidelines for all of that. If we're going to provide them training, we're potentially going to provide them an ID card that says they're a Sherwood Police Department, honorary, retired, whatever, and here's his card so that he can carry his concealed weapon as a retired police officer. We don't presently do this, and it's a little bit uncomfortable, and I have lots of reasons for that I probably best that I don't get into right here, but that's really what this chapter covers. And not every police department, in fact, I would say that I don't know that it's a majority. I would say it's at least 50-50 that of the police departments that actually provide the service. So it obviously brings with it some liability, right? That's one of the big reasons. I mean, somebody retires, they're no longer under my supervision, they're no longer working for me, getting paid for me, and I've given them a card that says that they're good to go and they can carry that gun. And something happens, then somebody's going to potentially come knocking on our door and say, hey, you guys train this fella, right? So that's one of the concerns. Not to mention, in addition to that, it's just an extra level of management that frankly we don't have time for. Okay, any other questions on that? All right, see, we managed to get through 2 chapters relatively painlessly.
A few corrections other than that.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be getting an email or two from a couple
Yeah,
people.
Laurie just sent that in. Are we ready to move on to counselor news? Hearing no objections, Kim.
I forget that with Microsoft Teams, if I don't wear my earbuds, that you can hardly hear me with the microphone. Council news. Is that where we're at now?
Yeah.
So a lot of you probably or maybe heard, just as a addition to some of the conversation earlier in the meeting, that City Council did make a statement Tuesday night to that effect. I'll just read it real quick. It said, over the weekend, there was a rally in the city which was promoted as an opportunity for citizens to peacefully exercise their First Amendment rights in expressing support for Sherwood Police. No one was cited or arrested at this rally, and no laws were broken. The City Council supports our police department and the excellent work they do for our community, and supports the rights to freedom of speech. Just as importantly, the City Council does not condone or support any group, organization, or individual from any side of the political spectrum that engage in hateful, threatening, criminal, or violent behavior of any kind. Those behaviors have no place in this community and are contrary to the values of the City of Sherwood and the Sherwood Police Department. This was in response to the citizen comment that the City Council had received that night. So just wanted to get that out there. In other news, our next City Council meeting on September 1st, we'll be having a work session prior to the meeting on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and having that conversation as a council and what, if anything, we could be or need to be doing that's not already being done, if anything, as far as the city, and what, if anything, could we be doing more as a community. Also, in September, we are looking at our first reading of annexing about 28 acres, 2 tax lots off of Southwest Tonquin Road within the Tonquin Employment Concept Plan. So this is kind of exciting because one of City Council's goals, really one of our huge goals, is economic development. And if we can get more industrial, commercial out there in our Tonquin, I always want to put an L in there, Tonquin employment area, hopefully it'll bring more jobs to our area and more living wage type jobs to that area. And let's see what else was announced. Today we announced 2 small business programs. So you may remember at the beginning of COVID, we gave out about almost $200,000 to our small businesses to help them through COVID. And it is a small amount that by the time you spread that out, it sounds like a lot of money. But businesses were able to pay their rent or help pay their employees. Well, there's 2 more programs. We have one from the Business Organ, which is a small one that we have available, $35,000. And then we have some CARES Act funding, about $248,000 that we've just opened those applications today for our small businesses to be applying for those and hopefully help with that. And then we will be seeing as a council that municipal code that you guys went over this evening. That will be on our agenda September 1st as well. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
I think Megan had a question, and then I do when she's done.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. I have 2 questions. I think one is to Chief and one is to Kim. So Chief, I'm not a police officer. I haven't gone through all the training, so I don't know the laws inside out. I know this is shocking. Is menacing, things like, I know being a bully is not against the law. Being intimidating is not against the law. But I keep hearing this term menacing, like she's a menace to society when she is intimidating people with her gun and her, behavior. Is menacing against the law, or is it just people being pistols?
Yeah, to use the word.
Because I just realized I'm on public record and didn't say the word that came to mind.
Yeah, so that's really a good question. And one of the things that people need to keep in mind is that the definition of a word per Webster's is often not what the definition is per Oregon State statute. So menacing, according to Oregon Revised Statute, a person commits the crime of menacing if by word or conduct the person intentionally attempts to place or does place another person in fear of imminent, serious physical injury. And that is ORS 163190. I was just able to pull it up really quick on my phone. And what that has been determined to mean over the years, and how do you prosecute for somebody by that is that they are generally armed with some kind of a weapon that can cause serious physical injury. So you're talking about a gun or a knife or something pretty ominous, and they intentionally use that to put somebody in that, or try to, right? So the most common, from a police perspective, the most common incident of menacing is when somebody points a gun at another person. So you have a road rage and people are exchanging gestures and so on and so forth, and somebody pulls a gun and points it at one driver pulls a gun and points it at the other driver. That would be menacing.
Okay,
Now,
so
we've even had it go so deep into the weeds but in terms of judicial definition, that we have to then have the gun that was pointed, and we have to examine it and test it to make sure that it was actually capable of being fired. So it can sometimes become a really strict, serious definition, and it's far from the example you used. Well, they're a menace. They were a menace. They harassed me. They bullied me. That is, legally speaking, that is nowhere near menacing. And in fact, it's nowhere near harassment. Harassment has to include physical contact.
Okay, so a known convicted felon with a concealed weapon permit who openly carries a gun is driving by, intimidating local businesses, saying nasty things like, I know where you live, I know your family's names and ages and all that, intimidating, bullying behavior, that person would not be considered a menace under this OAR 163190 because they're not actively pointing said gun at someone.
That's
Am I correct
correct.
in understanding?
Yep, and I need to make a couple corrections. If somebody's a convicted felon, they cannot possess a gun.
That's what I thought. That is not what I'm hearing online. That is what I
Well,
thought.
okay, so then let me throw this out. And I know
Thank
this
you
may
for
come
that.
as a shock to some people, but what you hear, see, and read online is often extremely far from the truth. So, I mean, that's why we investigate and we, obviously I'm being sarcastic with that. Everybody knows that. But
I know.
and then the other thing is just a fine thing. It's ORS, not OAR. It's
Thank you.
yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
OARs, those are administrative rules,
Yeah.
and ORS are revised statutes. So those are actually where the criminal statutes are in ORS.
Okay.
And that's where the definition of menacing that I just provided to you came from.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. And when I meant read online, I mean like specific people that seem like they knew what they were talking about, not just,
Yeah.
But
Who knows?
Okay, so Kim, I love that the mayor put out a statement, that city council put out a statement, Sherwood Foundation, thank you, Lori, put out a statement, but nobody is actually denouncing Proud Boys, and they're the bullies in town. Why is that? Someone, a city councilor personal messaged me and said, it's really complicated. Can we uncomplicate it publicly? Like, what's going on that we can't as citizens know is going on for some reason? Like, I'm sorry, I don't get it. It seems like the truth should be out there and then we can work together. So I think this is a Kim question. I'm not sure.
I'd be glad to answer it, Counselor, if you'd like me to.
That would be great, because I'm not going to speak on behalf of the whole council. So
Yeah.
Each counselor may have their own opinion, but I personally will defer to the advice that Chief has given, or I saw a response, and I think he's the right one to give the answer.
It's frankly, it's bad policy. If you're going to specifically name a problem, whatever that problem may be, then you need to name every problem, and which then becomes its own problem, right? Because now you've stirred the pot with somebody else who's gonna land on the different side of the spectrum. That's first of all. Second of all, why wave a flag, right? Why make a public statement calling somebody out, and when in fact those types of individuals from all different kinds of hate groups, radical extremist organizations are simply looking for the invitation. And so when you call them out, you have invited them to a challenge. And as I've said in several emails to people this past week, I just need people to trust my wisdom on that. It's a bad thing to do. It's a bad idea. Sherwood doesn't need that kind of attention. And I think it should be simple enough for everybody to know that this is not what Sherwood stands for. It's not what the Sherwood Police Department stands for or is about. Never has been, never will be, and isn't now. And the same applies for the city of Sherwood and the Sherwood Police Foundation. So that's really what it comes down to.
I think I'll just add to that.
That satisfies me.
Groups of all spectrums on all sides, because I'm not also going to name any groups. That's what they want. They want that pedestal or that, and so why give it to them? My personal opinion.
I'm processing.
Yeah, it's often not an easy pill to swallow, but I can tell you after over 30 years, there's just certain things you learn that, and that's just, like I said, I just need people to trust my wisdom on that. That's just not what Sherwood needs right now. Sherwood needs to focus on being the best it can be, including the police department, and we're going to have to put up with people's exercise of their rights, and we just have to make sure that they do it legally and they do it peacefully, and we will not tolerate anything against the law like riots. And so that's the simplest way to put it.
So maybe the police and council can keep reiterating that message.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you, as your police chief, I have.
Thank you.
We had a 45-minute work session where I talked about not only is that not who we are, but here's why and how that's not who we are. We posted on Facebook at the suggestion of our officers. Chief, put that letter out there. Mm-hmm. We put a statement out, and we got 65 responses, affirmative responses from our community that said, yeah, that's right, that's not who you are. We agree. Thank you for that. So, that's where we're at, and that's who we are and what we stand for, and I stand by that. So, and every member of the police department in the city does as well. So.
Well, I thank you, Chief. I appreciate Chief, and I trust that you're making the right decisions.
Do we have any more questions for Councilor Kim? Well, then I imagine we are down to staff reports.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick update on our recruitment. As you know, City Council, Budget Committee, City Council approved 2 positions. So that's kind of year 2 of the 3-year staffing plan, and we are actively recruiting those positions. We opened for lateral police officers only the first go around, and we have exhausted that list, which was very short, and that's pretty common. And well, not completely exhausted. We're still working through that, but we've now opened for what we call all comers, recruits, laterals, anybody that wants to come to work here as an officer. So we're presently recruiting there, and so hopefully we'll get a bunch of applications in on that end, and we'll continue to move forward, and I'll continue to give you updates.
And we lost one. Didn't you say that the other day when we met?
One of our applicants, lateral applicants, yeah. Yep.
It's too bad. Do we have anything else that we want to say to the chief before we get to citizen comments? One another? Councilor Kim? Hey, Angie, you're there, right?
I'm here.
All right. Well, would you, I guess you're going to read the citizen comments that have been submitted?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Okay, so we have 4 citizen comments submitted, and I'll be reading them in the order that we received them. At a time of national social unrest with protests against systemic racism in policing, I am concerned that there was a pro-police rally 1 block from the Sherwood police station where a Proud Boys flag flew on Saturday. This group is defined as a hate group with strong ties to white supremacy. I am concerned about this type of action creating an even more divisive environment in our town where some won't feel safe. I support our police and think there's an opportunity here to clarify that SPD does not support the Proud Boys, nor do they want their support in a thinly veiled counter-protest to the Black Lives Matter movement. Please consider making a strong statement against aligning support for police with support from groups like the Proud Boys. I recognize and appreciate that SPD works very hard to keep Sherwood a safe, welcoming community, and that this action of solidarity would go a long ways with a community that includes many individuals targeted by groups like the Proud Boys. Thank you for your consideration, Alicia Gray, Sherwood resident since 2017. All right, the next comment is from Dean Gooding. My name is Dean Gooding, and we have lived in Sherwood for 32 years. This is from a father, mother, and my family, and a family that lost a son when he was shot and killed in the line of duty. Sergeant Jason Gooding, our son, was shot and killed while trying to serve an individual his 31st felony warrant on February 5th, 2016, on the main street of Seaside, trying to remove this individual before any harm was done to the public. It was to be his last day on earth with friends and his family. With what has been on social media, I felt it was appropriate to send this story. I will explain what the thin blue line represents to us and to each and every law enforcement officer and families and what it means to them. It's a commitment to never forget fellow officers killed in the line of duty. Never forget. And commitment to support their creed of respect and honor, to support each other and the community they serve, to step in harm's way to protect the citizens of this community or any they serve. Every time we see one on display, we thank people that fly it. We thank them for their service and thank them for remembering our son. Ignorance of such a symbol, such as a flag or sign, can cause confusion
We
and
love our new
fear.
home. There's so much
So
space.
here are some
but
facts
we have
of the
ants.
flag,
Expired.
what they mean, so you can help others understand
Expired.
when they
It's a lot
see
of
one
house.
and share the
Hope we can keep it
information
clean.
with
At
others.
least Geico makes.
What is the thin blue line flag? A question we are often asked and worth some explanation. While the roots of the thin blue line trace its origins to the United Kingdom, it has grown in popularity here in the United States as a recognition of the commitment of law enforcement as protectors of our communities. The phrase thin blue line was initially mentioned in a 1911 poem by Nels Dickman Anderson. In the 1950s, the blue line was adopted by law enforcement professionals to represent their courage and sacrifice while protecting the American people. The thin blue line emblem was established to symbolize all law enforcement personnel, similar to the Red Cross symbol representing all medical personnel. The thin blue line embodies the unbreakable component of law enforcement, standing as a safety barrier between the law-abiding citizens of America and the criminally inclined. Ronald Reagan once said, "Evil is powerless if the good are unafraid." Above the blue line represents the good spoken in Reagan's quote, while below the line represents the evil. The law enforcement brothers and sisters in the United States make Ronald Reagan's quote a reality, and the thin blue line represents their constant bravery. They risk their lives daily upon the streets of America. The thin blue line is a small token to remind us that the presence of law enforcement is to bring forth peace and diminish hostility and violence. Just as the American flag pays tribute to the American people and the country's sacrifice to gain independence, the flag containing the thin blue line pays homage to our law enforcement. Displaying the flag in any forum demonstrates support to our law officers for their thankless efforts in keeping the peace across our nation. Learn more about the Oregon Fallen Badge, concerns of police survivors, Oregon Police Officers Association, local foundations like the Bowman Family Foundation, the Sherwood Police Foundation, to name it a few in this community. That's the thin blue line, no political agenda, but a silent symbol of support, and never forget their sacrifice of what they have done. You don't wake up one day and say, "I'm going to be a cop." Go get interviewed and get hired. Find out yourself what it takes, what schooling it takes, what sacrifices a family must make, including giving one's life in the line of duty and leaving loved ones behind. It is a life's commitment. They enforce laws that we make and give to them, and then we get mad at them for following through. They take care of issues and problems that we don't want to see or hear, making us think life is good. We appreciate and care about our extended family that are brave enough to wear a uniform and represent us. All of you should also. Stand behind the thin blue line and what it means. Respectfully and humbly, Dean Gooding, surviving father of Sergeant Jason Gooding. End of watch, February 5th, 2016. The next citizen's comment was submitted on Monday by Daniel McKenzie. My name is Daniel McKenzie and I live in the city of Sherwood. I was one of the organizers of the rally that was hastily put on this last Saturday after the official rally was canceled. I understand that there has been some conversation and controversy surrounding the Proud Boys' involvement in the rally and wanted to clarify a few points. When they arrived, the Proud Boys were specifically asked not to fly their flag by me, as I knew that it would detract from the message we were trying to convey that day. They obviously chose not to comply with my request and flew it anyway. Our stated intent from the beginning was for the rally to be nonpartisan. While our group did not agree with their choice to do so, as a Marine veteran and a former police officer of 10 years myself, I've learned that one of the uncomfortable side effects of the First Amendment is that we oftentimes have to hear and see things we may disagree with. Also, there were absolutely no other avenues for us to take to dissuade them from doing so. Concerning item number 1, it is also noteworthy that we had BLM supporters present at the rally. Those two young women were allowed to travel freely in and among our group, and aside from some attempts at honest discourse, we were not otherwise mistreated by members of our group. We gave them water and Powerade and made sure they were not mistreated by the Proud Boys. During the course of my conversation with them, I even personally thanked them for being present and taking part in their constitutional right to speak freely and protest peacefully. We were even able to agree on a few things, which was encouraging. Number 3, there were community members of many races represented within our rally, Black, Asian, Hispanic, Polynesian, who were all treated with the utmost respect and dignity by all parties involved. We even had a resident from Guatemala who gave great testimony about what living life in a country with truly corrupt and inept policing is like. It would have been great for more people of influence in the community to hear what he had to say. Number 4, lastly, while I can certainly understand that there are a lot of people that have had a lot of pain brought to the surface given recent events, the side that is being almost completely ignored here is that of the officers' families. We were approached by a wife of a Portland police officer at the rally who was quite literally shaking and sobbing, explaining to us how her family in our community has been doxxed, threatened with violence, and are now living in fear 24/7. This is not a unique thing, and that was the purpose of our rally, to show them support, to let them know that we are here for them as well. While the focus of the conversation as of late has been Black Lives Matter, I find it reprehensible that this is a part of the conversation that is being largely ignored. There are really good police officers out there, and they don't deserve to be the scapegoats for the few bad ones. I disagree with the assertion that somehow supporting the police is a counter-protest to the BLM movement. Having been a police officer myself, I know firsthand the important work these men and women do every day to ensure the safety and security of all of our community members, because they are all of us and they are the best of all of us. The police have work to do, absolutely, and they most likely always will have to keep improving as they are human beings and are burdened with imperfection just as the rest of us are. For almost 20 total years in the military and as a police officer, I watched men and women of all races, religions, sexual preferences, etc., do amazing things in the face of great peril to themselves for people of all races, religions, sexual preferences, etc., without so much as a thought as to what that person looked like, who they prayed to or not, who they loved or who they voted for. There will always be evil in the world. We cannot legislate that out of people's hearts. We cannot legislate that out of people's hearts. The people in America stand ready to face that evil every day. For everyone to feel safe, we need the best police officers society has to offer, and they need to be well funded, well trained, and it wouldn't hurt for the community to show them some appreciation now and then. That's all we were trying to do last Saturday. Respectfully, Dan McKenzie, Sherwood, Oregon. All right, I have one more submitted yesterday to the Police Advisory Board. The Sherwood Police Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. As a 501c3 nonprofit, the Sherwood Police Foundation does not and will not affiliate with political organizations. The SPF did not participate in the rally this past weekend. The mission of the SPF is to strengthen and promote community support for the Sherwood Police Department. Our vision is to promote the highest level of public safety and security by ensuring that the SPD possesses the necessary skills, resources, training, and programs to effectively and safely serve our community and to create community partnerships that encourage citizen participation in enhancing the safety of Sherwood. The SPF looks forward to holding events in the future that will enhance the relationship between the citizens of Sherwood and the officers of SPD to continue building a sense of community and mutual support in the furtherance of the SPF mission. Respectfully, the Sherwood Police Foundation Board. And that concludes the citizen comments for this evening.
Is there anything else to come before the Police Advisory Board? In closing, I want to thank each and every one of you. I'm sure things have been weighing on your minds and hearts just like it has mine. And so I want to thank you for your professionalism. I want to thank you for your heart and the things that the reason you're here, the reason you're on this board. So as we go forward, let's go forward together. We love our police department. We love our chief. We love our city council. And we're a unit. And so we have a wonderful charter. And let's continue to plow down that road. So if there is nothing else, then if someone would like to make a motion that we call this meeting at an end, that'll be entertained.
Ralph, I move the meeting be adjourned.
I second.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Rich. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you all.